very much for this, Crispin, and everyone behind the scenes that makes this happen, by the way. It's an incredibly important discussion. I just want to pay tribute first off to Paula, DPAC, all of those that are out there building that mobilisation for economic and political justice and against the attacks on disabled people in particular. I mean, we work very closely with DPAC. We have for a long, long time now. We fought against universal credit since its first conception over 8 years ago by the Honourable Ian Duncan Smith, of course. And our Unite community members, of which Paula is a very proud one, have been out on the streets with DPAC, the People's Assembly, all of those community organisations that have built up a real confident, mobilising force, actually, to take on the government and work against those local authorities as well that are failing to provide that local level support that's so desperately needed, not just during the COVID pandemic, of course, but has been neglected for decades now. And we've had a whole series of national days of action. And I know it's been really difficult during the pandemic to get on the streets and mobilise and do those things that we do best. It's been on demonstrations with Paula and others where they've chained themselves to railings outside Westminster, picking up on some of those, really historical, fantastic events that the suffragettes used to wage when they were fighting for the right to vote, of course. Direct political actions, conscious actions against a government that's taken a deliberate, conscious political choice to exclude from that miserable £20, because it is a miserable £20. John raised the point about £20 is not enough. In fact, the whole system should be scrapped and replaced with a system of social solidarity and not this welfare state that the Tories like to demonise the worthy and the unworthy within. But that's a much bigger issue, of course. But we've been out there fighting for social and economic justice for the 2.2 million people that have been excluded from that £20 payment. 1.9 million of them of whom are disabled. And that, as I said, was a political choice. This is the fifth richest nation on our planet. So let's not fall for some con trick that we can't afford to pay those that are the most vulnerable within society an amount of money that allows them to live with dignity, or we can't home our homeless, or we can't alleviate the need for food banks or clothing banks across our society. It's quite disgraceful, Crispin, that we see 14 million people in poverty. So I don't see about universal, it's much bigger than universal credit in reality. We've got 4.2 million children living in poverty in the UK in 2021. 30% of those, 30% of all children, actually, 9 children in every class of 30 are living in poverty in the UK right now. That's an obscene figure. So never be told that we can't afford to make different political choices to end poverty. Poverty is a political choice by its very nature, and therefore you can make alternate political choices. We've got 10 million people using food banks. Paul outlined, the case for the disabled, millions there actually, that are facing real destitution. As John said, the UN report spoke about destitution now, not just poverty, but destitution, being stuck in their homes, shielding during the biggest pandemic in 120 years that the globe has faced. And right now, of course, their costs are going up, whether that's heating costs or eating costs. And yet they're being left on benefits that have been squeezed and cut for 10 years via an austerity programme that the Tories have been rolling out. And on the other side of the equation, of course, those with money have done very nicely. So whilst millions are losing their jobs and facing, the real threat of eviction or life on benefits, billionaires have increased their wealth by more than a quarter during the course of the pandemic. £7.8 trillion is now in the hands of billionaires. And that's obscene in modern society. And that requires us to do something very serious about it. That requires a new politics, a new economy. And that's why the previous debate, John was involved in it, in the paper review, of course, about what sort of society do we want to be, is so incredibly important. What sort of new economy, new politics do we need? How do we end this attack on the poor and the vulnerable? All of our poor and vulnerable. This narrative of the worthy and the unworthy, the workers and the shirkers. That point that Rishi Sunak made, that he excluded deliberately, consciously excluded those that weren't in work from that additional £20. How obscene is it that work doesn't pay in any event? This corporate welfare ideological position that the taxpayer can subsidise low pay, poverty wages, short hours, employers' profits, shareholder dividends. It's obscene that the state sees its role in propping up already rich corporations, millionaires and billionaires across the world, rather than supporting the most vulnerable within society. And that's what we need, Crispin, that new solidarity fund. Return to social security, not stigmatised welfare. Whether you're disabled, whether you're sick, whether you're vulnerable, whether you've been injured at work, we all rely on social solidarity at some point in our lives. Ending pensioner poverty is hugely important to us. Fuel poverty, food poverty. We're in a very difficult place right now, a desperate situation for millions, Crispin. And we need a new politics, a real new economy out there. And that's that vision for a better, fairer, greener society. So, I'll end with this, Crispin. My hats off to DPAC, to Paula, to Jennifer, who we haven't heard from yet, to all those in Labour that are standing up with us, all those that want to get back out on the streets again, build that confident class movement to start a real effective fight back and make that difference that we all know we need across our nation right now.